Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
Welcome to so it's Thursday, so it's actually a keto coffee with Karen. We have a coffee with Karen on a Monday where we discuss, I would say, more sort of current events and other stuff, things related to business or self-development. But Thursdays is really, I'm saving it for more a holistic approach to health, restorative health. So today's topic, we are going to be talking about autoimmune. This is something that does seem to be coming up a lot more. I think years ago when I was a child, there were very few people that you heard about that were suffering from autoimmune disorders. And more recently, it's absolutely huge. And there are quite a few culprits. I would say I don't think there's ever one thing only that causes this, but maybe due to how our lifestyle has changed in the last 60 years could have some indication. So my guest today, Nathan, if you would just like to introduce yourself to the listeners, explain who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your story, please.
Amazing. Thank you, Karen, for having me. Deeply appreciated to be able to share this. History for me, health-wise, my name's Nathan Simmonds. I'm a qualified leadership coach. I'm also a hypnotherapist now, so I'm working within a child trauma and trauma-related challenges for people, which has led me on a really interesting road of revelation more recently through my gut health and my Crohn's disease and floating speech marks and where it's come from and how I've cured it. The health journey started when I was actually 9 years old, normal, healthy child. Severe abdominal pains, turned out to be a perforated appendix. I then went to hospital, had the appendix removed, no other symptoms, no other diagnosis. And then across the course of about a year, that perforated appendix didn't get any better, even though they'd removed it. The symptoms continued, the pain continued, and backwards and forwards from GP and hospital, and eventually they diagnosed me with Crohn's disease. So this is 1988, this is happening. So,
Wow.
Yeah, so this is early in kind of the Crohn's journey, really, for many people. I was lucky that I got diagnosed as quickly as I did, which was about 4 months. A random doctor at the GPs at a random moment in time just took one look at me, knew Crohn's, and said, "You've got Crohn's and go." But previous to that, it was believed that only kind of prepubescent adolescent girls got Crohn's disease because it's a very hormone-related thing. So the reason they weren't diagnosing me was I was 9 years old, I was a boy, probability of having Crohn's was really low at that point in time. So I spent the next year.
Could you just briefly explain to those who don't know what Crohn's is?
Yep.
First of all, just explain a brief overview as to what Crohn's is.
Yeah, in short, it's an inflammation of the bowel or dietary tract, as I came to understand it. The immune system kicks in and you end up with certain things happening. You end up with passing blood, discomfort, bloating, your digestive system shuts down, stops working properly. You end up with blistering on the inside of your bowel, which is one thing that happened to me, and on the outside of it as well. So all these horrendous things happen. But in short, it's an autoimmune kind of symptom. So it's actually your body's response to something else that's going in your body. It's an inflammation. And any inflammation is an indicator that something else isn't working properly. So my journey with Crohn's has been very different to many others. And there's a few of us out there that have taken this journey. And it's very common. You eat something, you have a reaction, and you kind of go in this cycle. So there's people on immune suppressant medication. There's people that are kind of doing their best to manage symptoms with certain kinds of diet protocols, all sorts of things. But my journey is I did a full bacteria reset on my gut at about the age of 10 years old with the support of my mother. My mother was Google at that point in time. We didn't have the internet in the late 80s as we do now. And I went through that journey and I haven't had a flare-up of Crohn's in 32 years.
Wow. Now that's pretty amazing, especially when we think, when I've come across people who say they suffer with Crohn's, it feels like they have accepted the fact that that's it. That's their life. There's no curing it. There's no solving it. And they've given in to what they have been told by the medical profession. Would you sort of agree with that?
Yes, I would. And I'm aware that when we talk like this, especially with people that are in the trenches with Crohn's, that's a really kind of, it's inflammatory language to them as well. And it really is really upsetting and stressful. And I fully appreciate that. I was lucky enough, if that's the right language, to have been diagnosed at 9 years old, where I'm still a child, and I have that flexibility of mindset and identity almost at that point, in order to change the way that I live and I work and do certain things.
And a mum that's open, right?
Yeah, at this point in time. And we went a different route. We did the surgery, we did the medication, the steroids, we did all of that. And we also did the holistic treatment as well. And we shifted everything from a very different viewpoint. But what happens is in the majority of human consciousness, what we do is we outsource our responsibility to other people. We say, you're an expert, you tell me what to do, therefore I can live my life the way that I want to live my life. And when I get sick, I come to you, you give me medication. And we do the same with our teaching and with our medical and our self-care and our health, etc. We outsource instead of taking responsibility and resourcing who we are and what we're capable of. No one knows you better than you. And that's the truth. So when we do this, but as we slowly get older and people say, I am this, I am this. And the moment you say I am, and then the language you use after it becomes a definitive behavior. Now, I am angry, I am depressed, I am a Crohn sufferer. Mm-hmm. You're making that part of your identity. And the moment you say, okay, well, you're an expert, I'm not, I am this, that sense of ownership becomes skewed, unfortunately, for people. And we really have to, if you want to make the shift, you have to be really conscious, okay, how's my life going to change when I make this shift? Mm-hmm. Do I, and also it's like, do I want to behave in a certain way? Do I want to give these up? Do I want to go through this discomfort in order to get actually to myself to fully healthy? Or do I want to or abdicate that sovereignty to someone else? Yeah. And that's where the challenge comes from.
I think, you're absolutely right there. I think a lot of people, I think we've been conditioned that way, to be fair. So, it's nobody's fault. It's only purely because they're just unaware. So like you said, I wholeheartedly agree. It's like we give our power over to the powers that be in white coats. And when we're ill, we expect them to give us this magic pill. Whereas I'm sure, as you're going to explain also, that the whole healing process, there is no overnight cure. And so it does feel like some people are not prepared to go through that healing process. Sometimes it would just be easier for them just to take a tablet and, again, give their power away. Would that be, obviously not with everybody, but would that be sort of quite general view on things?
Yeah, the challenge you have is, especially with autoimmune, when you go and study and read things by Garb or Mate, when the body says no, these sorts of things, you're going back into trauma. And a lot of the things with the autoimmune responses we have actually relate to a trauma. And the behavior that then causes the Crohn's or ulcerative colitis or IBS or whatever it is, that behavior is actually a defense mechanism to stop you going back and experiencing the pain and the heartbreak that came from a trauma that caused the behavior, which then caused the disease to represent and manifest as it did physically. Now, that's your ego playing tricks on you, it's bullshitting you. Okay, it's your ego playing tricks on you, and you have to learn how to play tricks on it back and go back to that place. This behavior is something that you can actually shift and change, and you can do different things with. But it means going back to that place where it started from. And to go back to that place feels uncomfortable. To go back to that memory doesn't fill you with a sense of joy, it fills you with a sense of dread. But it's that thing that's causing an emotional response, causing emotional eating. It's causing you to choose certain habits and behaviors, which then start breaking down the immune system as a result of stress, which then causes your immune system to behave in a different kind of way, which then means you end up in this cycle. And you go, I am this because it's safer to feel like this than it does to actually go back to the thing that caused it. And that's and hands up, it's hard work, it's messy work, but it's the root cause of it.
Makes a lot of sense. So what I'm hearing you say is that there is a huge connection between the mental and the physical.
Yep,
right?
Categorically.
And I do really feel that people are coming along to that sort of end result now. I think, with all the awareness with mental health, I think people do have this understanding more that the mental can affect the physical. I mean, we know that there's a huge, this is why this show is about. It's mental, physical, spiritual. It's the whole thing. Anything that starts in the mind has got to manifest through the body. And I've always had a feeling that, stress. I mean, there's other things that are add-ons.
Yeah.
But stress, whether that's come from a traumatic time, whatever, stress, but the whole thing is around stress. And I think every program we've come back to this one thing, linked with cortisol, the stress hormone.
Yep.
And the phenomenal effect that it can have on the body. So for you, so would you say that, you've healed yourself, basically, but how long would you say that it took? How long was the whole process?
The journey, there's a couple of things to unpack in what you said there, which is there's a phenomenally rich amount of content in those few sentences you just shared. One is cortisol, the stress hormone. It's a necessary hormone in our system. It wakes us up in the mornings, it keeps us alert, it does these things, but we muck around with cortisol in our system using too much blue screen, putting ourselves in stressful situations. The interesting thing is, what do they treat most autoimmune diseases with? Steroids. And what's a steroid? It's a derivative of a cortisol. So then what you're actually doing is you're creating a stress reaction which increases cortisol in the system, and you're therefore then treating the stress with stress. Doesn't make any sense, does it?
Who decided that was a good idea?
But it works in kind of that medical immediacy and emergency. But when you're not short term, which is most medicines are designed for the short term. So it's about going back to the root cause of that stress and why the cortisol is pumping through and becoming too prevalent in the system, which causes the autoimmune system to fire up and go wrong, as it were. In fact, it's just overworking. It's not even going wrong. So that's one of the things that people need to go back and have a look at for sure, is where is the stress that's causing it? You talk about the mind-gut relationship. You have a thought, and let's talk about one thing about trauma is everyone thinks trauma is 9/11. Everyone thinks trauma is the 35 car pile up on the highway, multiple deaths. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Trauma is small and large. It could be the one thing that your first boyfriend said to you when he broke up with you, and you remember that, and therefore that shapes the way that you relate to a man for the rest of your life. Yeah. Or it could be the 35 car pile up on the freeway. It's anything that shifts your physiology or psychology and codes it or shifts it in a different direction, which causes a change in behavior that isn't beneficial to you. Right. Yeah, trauma isn't what happens to you, it's what happens inside you as a result of what happens to you.
So it's the response. What you're saying is
inside.
The response, yeah.
So something happens to me, and I'll give you, my childhood was full of sweets. I grew up in a generation where I had a Ribena Smile, and my favourite place to go was Woolworths Pick and Mix. Yeah, mm-hmm. That's where I spent my childhood. So I'm eating these sugars. So something's gone on. I don't even know the answer to all of that. I haven't even got to that point, but I'm aware that there's a behaviour, there's a thought that's driving a behaviour, which is pulling me towards sugar. It's pulling me towards dopamine, addictive behaviours, all addictive behaviours. So 100% of addicts have had trauma in the background. So this addictive behavior is resulted to a dopamine hit. So the trauma causes a behavior which then gets me to go towards dopamine: sex, gambling, drinking, drugs, sugar, too much coffee, all these things. So this thought is generating a behavior that's driving me towards a substance that creates the dopamine hit. The dopamine hit, especially if it's sugar, is going to go in my system and going to cause huge amounts of inflammation in my system. They've been writing about this since the 60s and 70s. I think one of them was The Great White Death, I think, is one of the books about sugar from the 70s.
They hid it well, though, didn't they?
Oh, amazingly so. So it's the thought that's causing a behavior which is driving a physical manifestation. So it's not spiritual woo-woo, it's here. But then you can flip it back the other way. So I put the sugar in, which causes a spike in my dopamine here, which then spikes me and then crashes me, which then causes me to go, I feel bad now, I'm going to go and eat some more.
Absolutely.
Then you end up with something like a yeast infection, which is actually what I had, an overactive yeast infection.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the yeast imbalance is a fungus living in your system. That's going, feed me, and that's sending more signals to my brain saying, eat more sugar, eat more Marmite, eat more yeasty things. Yeah. So yeast and sugar, Candida. That then spikes, and then you're in a cycle where your brain and the fungus in the bacteria in your system is talking to your brain. Your brain doesn't feel good. You feed it, and you go in a loop. Next thing you know, you have an inflammation, you have an out of balance gut flora, and your system starts to shut down, and your autoimmune kicks in.
It just seems to be, from what you're just telling me there, it's just almost like, well, I know this already, because there seems to be an incredibly common theme with all types of ailments, illnesses, viruses.
Yep.
Just so common. So how early on did you find out about Candida being an issue?
About 8 to 9 months in. So we did the journey. I've had my appendix removed. I've had 15 inches of my intestine resectioned at this point in time, chopped up by a surgeon at that point in time in the 80s. I've had an abscess on it the size of a tennis ball. One of my kidneys has deflated and grown back pretty much just after that. I've had a pipe in my jugular vein feeding me directly. This is all at the age of 9 years old. I've got pipes in and out of my nose at this point. It's a mess, yeah. Mm-hmm. So we go through the journey. I've done the steroids, I've done the operations, etc. And we end up speaking. My mum found this lady who's a reflexologist and a health kinesiologist, and she did the health kinesiology, just kinesiology testing for allergies of foods, etc. So we went through a full holistic allergy test. She went, okay, this, and this. You've got Candida. It looks like this. You need to do this full gut reset. And it was about 8-9 months in. And I think then it was kind of a case of a year to 2 years following it felt like about 2 years. I could be wrong with that, but I know it was a long time ago.
In your memory.
In my memory.
For a while.
But it was live yogurt, rice cakes, vegan cheese. We removed everything. Bread products, sugars. Everything was out for a year, 2 years. I remember as I was preparing for this conversation, I remember going to a school disco with a pot of live goat's milk yogurt when all the other kids were eating kind of the 1 penny. So I felt like such a reject, right? So we went through this for about a year, 2 years, full gut reset. Rebalance the yeast infection that was in there. And actually, there was a 2015 report I read. I think it's on the Crohn's and Colitis Forum main webpage. A 2015 report talking about that something like 70 or 80% of people with ulcerated colitis and Crohn's have an increase in yeast bacteria. So they're now talking about this in 2015 to say that actually imbalance is very likely to cause Crohn's disease. So for when I talk about Crohn's disease, I don't talk about Crohn's as a disease. I talk about it as a symptom as a result of the Candida. So when you go back and treat the Candida and rebalance and live in a way that keeps it rebalanced, the symptoms go away. And no, it's not. I categorically also say that no, there are some people out with Crohn's and ulcerated colitis, and it's happened as a result of an accident or a physical external injury. They have some different challenges with that. Those people, though, that are living a certain lifestyle and they're eating certain kinds of foods, and I'll give you some real prime examples of this. Is categorically, if you put nasty shit in, and I'm going to be black and white about this. If you put nasty shit in, nasty shit's going to come out. Mm-hmm. And I can't be more frank than that. Yeah. No. We live in a world with a lifestyle with choices of ingredients, etc. We have to get ingredient savvy. We have to get chemical savvy in our food. If we want to shift the way that we live and we want to reduce these symptoms and live in the way that we're actually designed to, stop eating these kinds of foods. And no, it's not easy because actually the act of eating some of those foods has become an addictive pattern. It's not that the food's good or bad, because food isn't good or bad. Food is an inanimate object. It just does what it does. Yeah. It's our emotional labels that we apply to the activity of doing that, and we associate with that food, which then causes a habit to form, which then makes us sick in the long run.
100%. Totally agree with that. And, trust me, I'm guilty of half of that. I'm aware of it myself. I know when I'm doing it. I know the healthy way to live. For me, I've gone on a definitely a low carb, higher fat diet, more whole foods for that exact fact. This is, I can teach it, but I can still do it myself, and I'm aware of what I'm doing. Totally.
Yes.
It's not something that you can switch overnight. And because, like you say, a lot of these things are linked to emotional triggers. Like I say to my clients, we, like you've just said, you spent your childhood in Woolworths and the sweet aisle. We and I'm not blaming my parents for this. This is just how things are, aren't they? If we've been good, we're rewarded, and we're rewarded with some ice cream, or birthdays for birthday cake and jelly and ice cream. So we have built neural pathways because we truly believe that there's a connection between, I've been good, or I've worked really hard, so now I deserve this treat.
Yes.
So there's so much going on here, and like you say, the trouble is I don't know about you, but I can go places. Say I'm driving on the motorway and I stop off somewhere. You can look around, and you just think there is nothing of any substance here. There's nothing that's nutrient dense. Everything in this shop is packaged, manufactured, overly processed rubbish. So no wonder it is hard for people when they're maybe just not being made aware of all of this, because the choices that they have are just A, B, and C, and all of those options are really not any good.
Yes.
So for you, so continue with your journey. So you've got this far.
Yep.
So you've had 2 years of eating very healthily, and very nutrient rich, and very low in sugar. What was the next stage for you?
Next stage in the big journey was coming of age. I say coming of age, failing miserably at school, going through bullying patterns at school, being bullied, becoming a bully, and just kind of feeling like I didn't fit in. So there's a lot of emotional stuff still going on. So, but gut-wise, I thought maybe there might have been some twinges there, wasn't sure, never went to the doctors, it went away. So I'm eating whatever I want. I got into smoking marijuana quite heavily through my late teens. I would smoke a lot of marijuana. I would eat a lot of rubbish food. I'd still be okay. Occasionally have some eczema flare-ups and stuff. Again, this is evident of candida shift, eczema flare in certain locations. Wasn't aware of it at this point. Later on the journey, I've travelled, I've gone around the world, met the love of my life. We've broken up, we've got back together again, moved to Amsterdam for 4 years, lived with her. We moved back to the UK, got married, had a lovely daughter. She's 8, just turned 8 in December, just gone. And we live in a wonderful house. We're just in the process of moving. So the journey has been really, really smooth, no issues. There have been a couple of incidences, though. One was a long time ago while we were in Amsterdam. So I was in Amsterdam until about 2007, 2008. Severe abdominal pains, like everything stopped. And I've never known agony like it, like everything stopped. Felt like I was having my guts really, really clamped up. It went away, 12, 14 hours, it went away. I've never had anything ever again.
Right.
And we were trying a raw food diet at this point. So we were trying juice cleanses and everything. We did a raw food diet, and my body just doesn't work with certain raw foods. And I'm aware of this now. So didn't think anything. It'd been and gone. Okay, recovered, feel a bit achy the next day, job done, move on. 6 years ago, about 6 years ago, maybe even 7 years ago this year, I wake up with severe abdominal pains again, the same abdominal pains. It's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, okay, well, I've had this before. Let's just walk it off. I'll drink some warm lemon water just to help things process and work. And this is kind of going on. Small detail I missed on this. I had a small patch of eczema on my wedding ring finger on my right hand. Little tiny patch of eczema. It's been there for a couple of years, and I thought it was to do with a scratch from a vegetable plant I'd put into my allotment. Didn't think anything of it. And it'd been flaring up though. It'd been getting a bit worse. Trying to think if that was happening afterwards. Might have been afterwards. But this little patch of eczema was the only symptom I had. And then, 7 years ago, severe abdominal pain. I wake up and it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Okay, I've had this before. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. It's fine. Okay, so I'm sleeping. I'm resting. It's not going away. It's not going away. It's getting worse. Sunday night, my wife is with my daughter. And my daughter's about 2 years old at this point. Maybe, about 2. I drive myself to A&E. in absolute agony. Haven't been to toilet at this point, so we're talking about autoimmune, so I'm going to be quite frank about what's going on, but not too graphic.
Right.
I get misdiagnosed at the GP, at the emergency GP at the hospital. He said, "Oh, just take the laxatives, it will be fine." Doesn't work. I go back to my GP on the Monday and said, "This isn't working." And she basically has a press on my stomach, has a look around, and she went, "You've got adhesions in your bowel from the original scar tissue. If this doesn't pass in the next 48 hours, you need to go to hospital and check yourself in under a surgeon." I was like, okay, shit. So I haven't eaten and I haven't been to toilet since Friday night at this point in time. It's now Monday. Okay.
Right.
Severe agony, still in pain. Can hardly drink anything, just a little bit of water. Wednesday, I check into the hospital. I explain to the A&E, this is the situation. I've been told to come here if this hasn't improved. Hasn't improved, we need to go. Surgeon takes one look at me, they do all the scans. And from the scans, what they work out is the original scar tissue from the first operation when I was 9 years old. Remember, this is 1988, this operation was done. If you look at my stomach and you see the scars, one of my scars is almost an inch wide, the original scar. And then the new ones have got a tiny. But the original scar tissue on the intestine had actually broken down and died, and I now got a hole in my intestine.
Oh!
My system has completely shut down. So I'm almost a week now and I haven't eaten at this point in time. So then Saturday morning, I then go into surgery. I'm losing weight rapidly at this point. I go into surgery and I have an emergency ileostomy, which means I end up with a colostomy bag for 20 months.
Right.
I lose 15 kilos in 10 days, and I'm not a big guy. I'm quite a slim guy, so I'm drawn, ribs sticking out, really bad.
You didn't want to lose those.
No. So no. So I go into full kind of like psychological meltdown, body shuts down. I end up with a colostomy bag for 20 months. The key thing to bear in mind, though, people say this isn't a Crohn's flare-up. They did a biopsy of the parts that they removed at this point, and also on the second one, and there were no signs of any Crohn's disease in the bowel. There was nothing.
Right.
It was purely a mechanical breakdown of the original operation.
Right.
So I go through the process, and what turned out, the eczema on my ring finger, this is a common symptom with things like candida and Crohn's symptoms. It's called hand and foot eczema. I don't know I can't remember the scientific name of it. And more often than not, it will start on your wedding ring finger only.
Wow.
Super weird, right? And it will only work on your hands and feet. So if you've got people listening to this, or you talk to people and they've got little patches of flaky eczema on their palms or on their fingers, or they look like little watery blisters or even pustules, yeah, it's hand and foot eczema. It's a clear indication that there's high probability that you've got a candida or yeast imbalance in your gut. Because what happens is your immune system starts attacking the bacteria on your skin in the places where you have the highest number of sweat glands, which is on your hand and feet.
Interesting. That's fascinating. Wow.
Bizarre, but this is a real clear indicator. So it's on the wedding ring finger, and I've been reducing my sugar down before the bowel, before the hole in my intestine had actually hit. So I was 78 days into a 90-day reset, trying to reset my candida, my sugar and my candida, because the finger had been getting really bad. So I was 78 days into a complete detox. My body said, "You're healthy enough to go to hospital. Time to go in." In I go. Have the operation because I was ready to have it, and I go through 20 months of that process. So really, really interesting. Yeah. So when people are having the sugar, when you see that the hand eczema, clear indication there's something going on, and sugar is a big indicator that's going to be a key problem for them.
Right. And how do you, I mean, I don't know about you, but I just really feel that candida is far bigger an issue that is currently being spoken about.
Yep.
So for anybody listening out there, do you have any sort of, other than obviously, so eczema on the fingers is a really good thing to look out for. What other things could you recommend for people to look out for that could possibly be an indication of candida overgrowth?
Yeah, and for me, the eczema was the main one, and it was on the hands, and it would really flare up and blister all over them when it was really going for it. Even eczema on the eyelids, so anywhere that's sensitive, eczema on the eyelids and on the insides of your elbows was always the key indicators all my life. Back of my knees and inside of my elbows for eczema, clear indicator I had a problem. In my teens, it was the eczema on my eyes that I wasn't looking after myself. And then later on, when it was really clear there was a serious issue, there was leaky gut, full works, hands and feet were then in place.
It makes so much sense. I mean, eczema, with anything like that, you just think that's the body telling you something.
Yeah.
Body telling you something. And what do they do? What do they want to always do? Offer you a steroid cream.
Or something to cover it up, yeah.
It's just the whole thing, unfortunately. And right, I'm not dissing Western medicine at all. There
is a place for it when it's needed.
Exactly, a place for it. So if it's really, uncomfortable for a child, maybe for at that time, to get rid of steroid cleanse and then look at longer term what the healing process of that, and not using that as a long term, because to me it's just, you're just putting a plaster on. You're not solving the root cause. Everything seems to be manage the symptom. Let's stop the symptom.
Yeah.
Rather than thinking, well, why have you got that symptom? Let's go back and find the root cause. Yeah. So I bet you're incredibly grateful that you found the root cause so long ago. I mean, yes, unlucky. Yes. So really you would say that was pure bad luck, wasn't it?
Yeah.
This last thing. That wouldn't be that common, I wouldn't have thought.
No, it's not. But so there's a couple of elements in there which are well worth diving into. One is everything in nature is a filter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And everything on your body, every orifice in your body is an exit point, is a cleansing, is a detoxer. Doesn't matter if it's your ear, your nose, your eye, your pores on your skin, and all the other holes in your body that you can list. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're there to expel certain fluids and bacteria and stuff like that. So everything in your body is a filter, and everything in nature is a filter. Yeah, the hair in your nose is filtering the dust out of it so you don't breathe it in. The follicles in your, the villi, I think it is, in your stomach are filtering out nutrition. All these things are working. Now, if your system and those filters aren't clean, and it's no different to a car. If you don't go and service your car and you don't clear the filters on your car, is your car going to run? Yeah, it will do, but it's going to run like a sack of shit. Come on, yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's going to So your system is the same. So you're clogging it up with gluten from bread. You're clogging it up with dairy products. You're clogging it up with things that cause more mucus than you would normally get, and so on and so forth, and inflammation. The filters break down. Your body struggles then to cleanse that stuff out, and then it doesn't, because of that stress on the physical. It then sends the autoimmune system to start attacking bits of your body in the wrong way, and then we end up on the immune suppressants and stuff. We're not designed to be taking these medications. Things happen to us, yeah. And we take them as an emergency precaution, but we then need to go back to that root cause and have a look at what's going on, what's causing this thing, and really kind of take it apart. Then when you see that, then you can make a decision, and then you can kind of get really savvy about who you are. Now, the other thing you talked about was, no, it's not very common. Now, this is the bit that got me really crazy. So the first time I'm in there for an emergency. 80% of the ward that I was on, so there's 6 men on there. Between 4 and 2 times I was on that ward in that little room, 4 to 5 men in each of that 6-man block was having a colostomy bag put on or taken off. So whether it's bowel cancer, so whether it was from Crohn's, whether it was from whatever, from my situation.
Wow.
And the guy next to me, so this is identity stuff here. When we're talking about identity, the guy next to me looks terrible. I don't know how old he is, but he looks terrible. And I definitely don't think he was as old as he looked, okay? Mm-hmm. He's just had a colostomy bag fitted. I don't know what the best word to say. Just had a colostomy bag installed. Like it's a freaking TV or satellite. So yeah. And he's screaming. He's just woken up from the anaesthetic. He's screaming at nurse, go and get my Lucozade. Go and get my Lucozade. I'll give you £1 to go and get my Lucozade, right? And the nurse is like, well, eventually she goes off and gets his Lucozade. So the guy's just had a colostomy bag put on. Then his son turns up with 2 or 3 cans of lemon Fanta. And then his wife turns up with 3 or 4 cans of Diet Dr. Pepper. And then the nurse is prescribing anti-nausea tablets. So this behaviour is so entrenched.
Totally.
It's so ingrained.
Totally.
And even in the midst of that pain, that guy's still asking for that stuff.
It's unbelievable. But I actually do know personally of somebody who has the same thing, and he informed me that his own doctor had told him to drink Coca-Cola. And I was just like, please, like, you real? Is this real?
Yeah.
I mean, just crazy advice for something that's, well, what do you think's caused that in the beginning? You know, and it's absolutely beyond me. But it does go back to the whole treat this for this, and then that's just an acceptable thing. And then once you've got that, then you have the bag fit, and you get on with life, and you take these tablets, and that's the way to deal with it. As opposed to, you know, if people want to heal themselves, yes, it's going to take a lot of behavior change. And I think some ways for a lot of people, again, myself included, I think we're conditioned to, I suppose our bodies are always looking to save energy. So it actually wants us to stay with the norm, because it doesn't have to use up any more energy to even consciously think about changing your diet plan. So it wants to keep you in that same, and it's the whole thing with the comfort zone and everything. And even if that comfort zone isn't good for you, your subconscious actually would rather you stay there because it knows what it knows.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing for a lot of people, if they're looking at ways of, if they're suffering right now and they're on medication, obviously nobody's saying stop the medication, but maybe start to look at some alternative ways. But also you need to be prepared to change.
Yeah.
And I think that's what some people want the cure, but they may not want the journey, or they're not ready for that journey, because that journey is going to involve big change.
Yeah. And
so from a mindset issue, that's got to be step one, is that you've got to be prepared that your diet is going to need to change.
Yes.
What you drink, what you eat, what you do is going to need to change. And once they've made that decision, then I think it's a lot easier for them to stick to the plan. Right. It
is this. So I'll give you a breakdown of how I understand it from the training that I've had as a hypnotherapist, and this is kind of key to the behaviours come up. Something happens, whether you're 5 years old, Karen. I'm saying this hypothetically, people who are watching this or whatever. Yeah, something happens to you, and that you're 5 years old, but that thing that happens to you isn't age appropriate. Like, it's a trauma. You know, maybe your dad says something to you, maybe your mum says something to you, and it's like, holy shit! No, I'm 5 years old, and it's almost like you're in the boardroom of your subconscious, and you're dressed in adult clothes, and someone gives you this dossier that says your dad isn't perfect, or your mum isn't perfect. And to you as the 5-year-old, your dad is the personification of the divine masculine, and your mother is the personification of the divine. They are perfection personified, yeah? But they do something that stops you from feeling safe. And the only thing that you need as a 5-year-old is to be safe and secure with these people. And they do something that makes you feel unsafe. And your little brain goes, I can't cope with this. I don't feel safe. And if I don't feel safe, my whole world is going to collapse. But then what your body does, it starts to create the ego. So it sends this thing in called the protector. And it's your subconscious, your psyche kind of starting to fragment a bit. And this protector comes in and says, I'm going to take that file away from you, okay? And you won't have to deal with anything in the end. Daddy will still be perfect. Mummy will still be perfect. And the 5-year-old version of you goes, that's fucking brilliant. I'm happy with that. You take the file. And then the protector says, I'm going to put it in this room over here. And I'm going to mark this door a 99 out of 100 for shitstorm. So if you go in there, the world will end. It will be the apocalypse. It will be like, 4 horsemen, rivers of blood, yeah. Cats will start liking dogs, full works, yeah. All the world's going to go. And your little 5-year-old brain goes, I'm good. I won't go anywhere. I'm not going to go near that. And this protector says, you need to behave in a certain kind of way. In order to stay away from this room, you need to behave in a certain kind of way so you don't experience the realization of what happened in there, of the heartache that comes with that. And the little 5-year-old brain goes, okay, I'm good. I'll behave in this way. And off you go. So you start eating in a certain kind of way. You start behaving in a certain kind of way, to get love or to do whatever. And all these things, they build habits and form behaviors. And like you say, the brain is using 20% of the energy you're putting in. So the less it has to think about, the more it can process the other stuff, because there's a shit ton of information hitting you every second. Mm-hmm. So it takes that away and says, okay, well, you've decided you're going to behave in this kind of way, which means that we don't have to think about those things that maybe cause us a lot of pain, stress, frustration, all those sorts of things. Yeah. And off you go. But every time you think about changing the habit, every time you think about going back to the addiction, every time you think about looking at the old behavior, it means that actually you might have to go back to that trauma and you have to experience that heartache. And your ego, which was the protector, then becomes the saboteur and then starts pushing you away by making you do things like drink too much coffee, go gambling, too many sexual partners, recreational drugs, in order to numb the sensation of that thing that's sitting in the background that caused the behavior to kick in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So to shift the behavior, to shift the addiction, to shift the pattern, you have to go back to the traumatic event, which does not feel comfortable, which does not feel normal, and it does not feel like the place you want to go. But all the time you want to run away from it, it's always going to be sitting in the back of your head. So it doesn't matter how far you run, that thing's always at the back there, waiting for you to give it attention, but more importantly, waiting for you to give it all the love it needs and give that little version of you all the love that they need that you believe they didn't get, which happened in that moment. You go back to that place, that's your root cause. That changes the pattern.
Absolutely. So would you say, for anybody listening out there, that it's not just a case of, so the physical side of this, would you agree, is the new eating plan, your new eating plan change. However, if you want to have the success, because we all know that it's quite difficult for reasons we've just discussed. You've said it yourself about, in the reward system for sweets and things. If that's your thing, it could be other stuff, bread, whatever. If people, really want to heal themselves from these things, and that is just the physical. You could probably download a diet from the internet for free.
Millions of them.
Yep. What they need to do if they want to be successful is to go back and address them from the mental perspective. And is this something that you personally offer, Nathan?
Yes. And it absolutely is. So look, if you look at smoking, I could sit there and I could take you through a couple of sessions to help you with smoking cessation and help you to stop smoking. But you'll probably come back to me in 3 to 6 months' time, because all I'm doing is helping you adjust the behaviour, like the initial thought. But if we don't go back to your need for acceptance when you were 13 years old, when you started smoking, which is what I had when I started smoking at 13, if we don't go back and address that, you'll just keep coming back to me every 6 months, which is great for my business because you keep coming back to me every 6 months. But in the nicest possible way, I don't want you to come back. I want you to sort this shit out and move forward. Now, you look at the physical and the eating side of it. If you've ever done a sugar cleanse, if anyone watching this has done, say, Whole30, how grouchy do you start getting between day 5 and day 10 on a sugar detox? That is the stuff coming up. That's your ego bubbling to the surface saying, go on, have some sugar. It's not, they call them what, sugar demons, but it's just your ego saying, have some sugar, because it numbs all the other emotions that might be coming up with this. So when you shift that, so the work that I'm doing now, and I'm researching and working with people and supporting them on, is going through the patterns, going back through the trauma, through the hypnotherapy, going back to the inner child, going back to the root cause of it, and then building up habits and behaviors so they can go and get their own eating plan. They can do their, they can do their 60-day candida detox with someone there to walk them all the way through the steps and to support them. So when they're feeling a bit low, when the emotions are coming up, we actually go and talk to the emotions. We actually go and talk to the little part of you that needs the support to go through that. So you go through another week, 2 weeks of your detox, reset your microbiome, deal with the trauma, come out of it not even a completely different person, come out of it the person you were before the shit happened, quite literally.
Fantastic. And so for listeners out there, I'm saying that you could get the diet from wherever to prove a point about the mental thing. But also, do you offer a cleanse for somebody to actually correct that as well?
I don't do the nutritional side of it. Purely, I can walk you through my journey and what I did. I can I can show you the supplements. But the thing is, the microbiome is so complex that everybody's microbiome is completely different. And my microbiome now may be completely different in 6 months' time.
Right.
So I can give you some generalizations of which probiotics to use, how they might interact with your bowel, what supplements I use and continue to use. They're great. However, that research, it comes back to that responsibility for yourself.
Yes.
No, this is your gut. How do these things feel? You need to research that and take control back yourself. So when I do the subconscious work with people, I'm going to give people back that ability, not even give it back to them, and help them to re-access what's already inside of them so they can make those choices more clearly for themselves.
Perfect. And I do think that that's what everybody needs. Like we've just said, you know, rather than, it's almost like we wait to get a symptom.
Yep.
Because most people don't know what's going on the inside of their body. So they wait until they've got a symptom, a negative one, not a good one.
Yeah.
And then go to the doctor expecting for them to save them by giving them a miracle pill that's going to work within 24 hours. And that's it. But anything like this, you know, if things have taken years to come on, because would you agree with me that none of this happens overnight? None of this happens
Not at all.
because you drank one can of Coca-Cola. It's what you've done for years and years and years. Yes. So none of it's going to be, it doesn't necessarily have to be really long, but you know, it's going to take more than 30 days, I would have thought. 3 to 4 months in general, even for your whole blood to renew. You know, if you were doing that perfectly, you know, that's got to be a minimum, I would say, something to take real root. But yeah, like you say, for people to actually go out, maybe see a nutritionist or somebody who is a candida specialist, because they are out there. They are out there, and there's many products out there. You know, and you don't even have to spend a lot of money. I mean, I know that I'm a total advocate for bicarbonate of soda. I mean, it's just it really does absolute wonders. But without taking that bit of advice, you still need to look into that as well, if that was going to be good for you as well. But if people do feel that they're suffering, from, they need help with the mindset part of it, for them to get in touch with you. So you're a hypnotherapist. What else is it that you do, Nathan?
I'm also a qualified leadership coach, so I qualified with the ILM. I've been working in management and leadership for 23 years. I've been in personal development and leadership development for the last 9-10 years. I'm delivering leadership content. And
are they not the same in a way?
They're all the same. But I was talking to a lady on Tuesday this week, and she just said to me, all leadership work is inner child work. So actually, if you go and look at the leaders and the challenges that we have in leadership nowadays, let's go political for 2 seconds. You're telling me Boris Johnson wasn't bullied at school. You're telling me that Donald Trump hasn't got daddy issues. It's true, though. You can't. So when you look at that, actually, if we look at how we parent, how we lead, and what we do, it's because of how we were parented and how we were led previously. So we do unto others as was done unto us. Yeah.
Absolutely, because that's all we know, isn't it? That's all the ego. Well, that's all the ego knows. So all the subconscious knows. It only knows. My subconscious only knows my past experiences. It just knows yours. You know, that's all it can go by.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I find it so interesting that it's almost like we do want to find a way to bypass the ego. I mean, the ego obviously is there for a reason.
It's a good thing.
However, I'm well aware my ego can get in the way of me. I need to get out of my own way sometimes, you know?
But this is the thing.
Down ego.
But your ego has done an amazing job at keeping you alive, several million years. That's how but what it's done is it picks up these habits and behaviors, and it stops protecting you, and it becomes a saboteur and sabotaging your behaviors. So what I do is I help people go in and renegotiate the job spec and renegotiate the job expectations of that part of your brain to give them new behaviors and new patterns. Because what happens is it has usually with the ego, it has a fear that if it's not there, that you will die. If it goes, you go. But we just give it some different responsibilities to support you moving you forward, rather than supporting you normalizing a behavior. So this is when we say, you do unto others as was done unto you. You do that because you want to continue to feel safe and secure with what happened to you in your early career or at home with your parents. So it just stops you holding, that wasn't normal. That behavior wasn't okay. That thing that happened, that's not all right. And as a result, now I can see that. I can then change the pattern and stop trying to normalize what happened and make excuses for it. Shift it, do something different, and move forward. And when you do that, life gets so much easier. It's messy work, but it gets easier.
I can imagine. And why do you feel that you know, even if somebody can consciously see that it's would you agree that it's very rarely a conscious thing? It's all a subconscious thing, something that people are doing without thought, without, this is why sometimes we do the things that we know we shouldn't be doing, that we might not get the result that they're going to give, and we still do them. That's not obviously our conscious part of our mind being in charge there. It's the subconscious. It's an it's an autopilot. And so what other ways, if people do think that, that's them, they think, oh yeah, that's me. What other advice? So there's hypnotism, hypnotherapy. What other things could they do? What sort of solutions would be out there? Somebody who's listening, they feel that, or they know that they've got Crohn's, they want to do something about it. They know it's going to be a long journey with the diet. What other things can you suggest that could help them?
Push the buttons and make them, encourage them in the nicest possible way. Do a Candida cleanse. Bite the bullet and go 60 days on a full Candida diet. It's not fun. It's not entertaining. It's mentally hard work. It's physically hard work. If you've got people out, so
alcohol.
There's nothing. It's basically eating rice cakes for 60 days. I mean, I still eat rice cakes, but you don't want to eat them on their own for 60 days. I jest. It's not completely that, but it's, especially if you've got people that are exercising hard. You've got the David Goggins fanatics, all these sorts of people. Okay, well, it's the same force that destroys you that creates you. So if you put the same level of intention into your physical exercise, into your job, into how you want to be as a parent, how you want to be and then just put that same energy and just transfer that over into doing a 60-day cleanse on a Candida diet. You can download them for free. Just do the search. The other option, and one of the key things that I did doing a 30-day, doing the sugar-free 30-day clean kind of thing. So there's no sugar. You just go like meat and veg, no additives, no processed food, no alcohol, no dairy, full paleo for 30 days, and just get rid of your refined sugar. Again, as you go through that process, especially with your sugars and your caffeine as well, because you drop the caffeine for the 30 days, you're going to feel how your body starts to shift, and that's going to bring up emotions. It's going to bring up stress. And in doing that, you'll start to see, hold on a minute, what's this feeling coming up? And Gabor Mate, when I was doing the learning with him recently, it's really interesting. He just says, no, how did you feel? I felt rejected. That's not a feeling. That's a perception. Yeah. How did you feel? And they say, I felt unloved. That's not a feeling. That's a perception. A feeling is you're tired, you're hungry, you're hurt and in pain. And there's another one on there, which I forget right now. So which one of those? Well, actually, I'm hurt and in pain. Okay. So what are you actually hurting about? I'm feeling hurt because I was rejected. So when you start to go in this, what am I feeling? Okay. And then you can start to question, okay, that sugar, that lack of sugar is letting an emotion bubble to the surface, or a thing that's a hurt. Okay, what's that hurt related to?
Wow.
And then you'll be able to define it and go back to it. And you'll want to speak to someone like me or a counsellor or a coach to go back and do the work and clear that shit out. So it just makes it easier next time.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And it I think this is not just about Crohn's or autoimmune. I truly feel that there are so many other implications with this, so many other illnesses, cancers. They're just so many things, and especially linked with Candida. And at the end of the day, the old saying is the best, you are what you eat. Yeah. And it is something that I really wish that the medical establishment had a little bit more of a acceptance of this. I mean, I know with my own studies through the Nutrition Network, it's really fascinating talking to you and hearing about how you've done it is because of the research that is coming out, like you just said, with a 30-day, and they would even go further and do full carnivore for 30 days, not even any vegetables, because of the lectin in the skins and the seeds of some vegetables being irritant. The results that are coming in are really quite fascinating. So it's not that you have to do it forever. It's not like, I can never eat this again, ever. It's about healing, breaking the habit from, again, this is just something that seems to be coming through on so many different topics, even some of the topics that we've spoken to in previous Keto Coffee with Karen, is that this whole thing is coming up, the link between stress, cortisol, the link between the microbiome. I mean, the autoimmune disorders, I truly feel that, nutrition is part of it, stress is part of it, chemicals. I mean, we're surrounded by just cleaning products, the air that we breathe, and then, EMF, electrical, I'm not saying the 5G conspiracy. What I'm saying is there's an electrical magnetic field that has an effect on our body on top of nutrition, chemicals, and this does seem to be the hallway thing, even from what we're facing at the moment with the virus. Again, there is, I know personally from suffering with asthma and really almost getting rid of a lot of chest infections through, funnily enough, eliminating candida. There are so many links that even if people don't feel that maybe they've totally got Crohn's and it's that bad, but maybe if they just feel that I really feel that doing a candida cleanse would help so many people in so many different ways.
But then you talk about the stress element. How many people do you know that get an upset stomach before they go for a job interview? How many people do you know that get an upset stomach before they go and do public speaking? How many people end up with constipation before they go and see their in-laws? It's all gut related. It's brain-gut relationship which is causing this stress. And those things, talk about irritable bowel syndrome or whatever. Well, actually, go back to the stress. What's causing the irritation? What's causing, I didn't have that irritable bowel syndrome because I had an upset stomach before I had a job interview. I was just crapless of going, quite literally, shitting myself for the job interview. But it's
all linked, isn't it? I mean, they say there's another brain. There's research coming out now that there's more.
Completely.
There's more to it. That is the other brain is in our gut. So I really feel that this is something that. For just general health, this is, if you don't suffer from Crohn's, if you have a sugar addiction, maybe it will be a good point to come and speak to Nathan even about that, to just eliminate that, even if you don't have any of the serious autoimmune disorders.
Agreed. It's a beautiful thing. And the other thing I actually just triggered in my brain was the other thing I was talking about, the gut-brain relation. They talk about having 500,000, so there's 500,000 neurons in your intestine. Your heart has 40,000. So your heart has got the same number of neurons in it that a cat's got, okay? And cats are fairly intelligent. And then you've got your brain, and they're all connected up. So one is feeding the other that's feeding the other. Parkinson's doesn't start in the brain. Parkinson's, and they've got studies on this, starts in your gut. Serotonin and other chemicals are released in the gut. They're not released in the brain, from what I've read recently. So there's this constant correlation.
I think you're on something there. I mean, there's so much. We could have so many discussions, I think, on here with in relation to that. But I think the overall thing is, to anybody listening, is, for overall health, gut health. And I mean, I know we spoke about it only just last week, for me, mainly aimed at women, perimenopause and beyond. It's not just that. This is then related to this and or certain autoimmune disorders. There is just so much for overall health that is just definitely something, and very easy and cheap. It's not an expensive treatment to do a candida cleanse. You've just got to make a decision and do it and stick to it. And if you're having trouble from the mindset, then speak to Nathan.
Please do. I'd love to speak to you. That'd be amazing. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm really glad that you've solved your problem and now you're able to help others as well. So for the rest of you, thank you very much. So we will be back on Monday with a coffee with Karen. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast. a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.